want to start out with a small poem, and I know it's not very common that people have a piece of paper in their hands, but I don't want to ruin a great poet's poem by trying to be very extempore about it. So I want to start with this, and this is something which is one of my favorite poems that I read often, every month or so. I hope that for a minute of silence from all of you while I read it out. All summations have a beginning, all effect has a story. All kindness begins with a sown seed. Thought buds towards radiance. The gospel of light is the crossroads of indolence or action. Be ignited or be gone. As today's TEDx, and this is a poem by a poetess called Mary Oliver, and I would highly encourage that all of you have a look at all her poems. The thing that actually makes perspective happen is the willingness to act. And action is what I'm going to talk to you guys about today. To start with, whenever we are dealing with a generation, and I will say when I say generation, I'm not going to be ageist and say I'm from a different generation, Principal Sir is from a different generation, all of you are from a different generation. I do not believe in that. I believe we are all a generation of the internet. And one of the biggest problems that we have with being the internet generation is that we feel very passionately every time we see a 30-second shot of some kind of injustice somewhere. We feel very passionately and joyous about somebody who's won something somewhere very far. Not really, yeah. We feel very passionately, we feel passionately happy, we feel passionately sad, we feel passionately angry and so much more. But the thing that actually comes out of it is nothing, it's status quo. So one of the things I will be focusing on quite a bit today is action, and not the kind of action you guys are thinking about. I'm talking about the will to act, right? So the first thing, I think you heard the introduction. So first thing is action for purpose. As Anuradha Garu spoke before me, like everybody else in Hyderabad, at least 95% of people, I'm also an engineer, and I'm from a different college called Vignan Jyoti. So I'm from Hyderabad. I went to school in St. Anne's, which is an all-girls school. Then I went to college in St. Anne's again, which is an all-women's college. And then I actually got into engineering. And my father very sweetly insisted that I go on and join a women's college for engineering. I strongly insisted to my father way back. I don't even want to say it because I think 90% of the population here wasn't born when I went for my counseling. I did insist to my father that I'm done with women, never again. So don't wish for too many things too hard with your father, it will actually come true. I wish I was a little bit easy on that. I never realized that I'm from Telangana. I never realized what my middle name meant. I never realized I was a woman or a girl till I joined the college. Because I was in an environment where I was never made to realize that I was different from anybody else. I was always told, or I was always guided by the principle that you could do anything you want to do in life, irrespective of everything. But when I joined the college, that is when I realized I'm a Telanganite. I learned so much from it. And after that, I finished engineering, respectfully, without any backlogs. And I went to the university in San Diego. I have a master's in electrical engineering. I did RF design for many years. And while I was in the US, I was also very engaged with the things that were happening back home. There was a lot of conversations about having a different state, the respect for language, the respect for culture, so much more. And as you know, and if you see many Karan Johar movies, many of the NRIs are much more Indian than Indians in India itself. And somebody whose family has been part of the Telangana movement, and somebody who's actually had an awakening in late teenage, that, I'm from Telangana, I was following the movement quite closely. But again, there was one thing that I was doing a lot of. I was thinking and feeling passionately about things without acting on a lot of things. And the change happened in 2009 when the announcement was made that there will be a conversation on a separate state for Telangana. And that is when I realized, and I was actually in the middle of so many intellectuals who spoke about what it means to make change. And while we were doing that, the first thing that I started doing, or I was tasked with doing, is creating data on why separate Telangana was even a conversation that we needed to have in the US. Because you're away from everything, right? All you're knowing is from newspapers or phone calls, but why are you even related to this? So at that point, we got engaged. I was doing a lot of data research. I was doing a lot of ground mobilization. We were doing a lot of activities for making sure that, there were some funds coming back and things like that. So all that happened in 2014, the state was formed. And when that happened, as every NRI, I was also giving a lot of gyan on saying that, now that the state is formed, it's exciting. Now for Telangana to become, let's say, a Taiwan or Shanghai, follow this 10-step model. Because I had researched so much on the internet, right? I read so much. I knew so much, but I never did anything. I just read about it and I gave a 10-point formula. At that point in time, the delegation from Telangana was visiting the US. And then, like every NRI, I sat and said, these are the things you need to do. And the Honorable Minister said only one thing. Talk is cheap. A lot of people talk. A lot of people talk. If we give you an opportunity to come back and do something, will you do it? And like the very smart person I am, and without thinking, 15 years later, in 2 days, I packed my bags and I moved back to Hyderabad. And this was in 2016. And when a lot of times and since then I've been working with the government of Telangana. So the reason I told you this story is not that you should act rashly like me by moving back from some place in 2 days. The reason I'm telling you this is that the way I was able to take that decision of moving back in 2 days with actually my children, my husband still works there in a company called NVIDIA. The reason I moved back in 2 days is because I had 5 years of preparation behind it. I started working on it in 2009, and in 2014 I was actually very prepared to move back. And so that is my first step. So that is my first action with purpose, or something I would like to highlight on. The second thing that I would like to extol upon to all of you is when you are doing this action with purpose, there is also an incredible need to learn, right? You know what is the true essence of life? Or for me, the biggest mantra that I follow is that you should always continually learn, unlearn and relearn. And when we talk about this, we always think, should I get one more new degree? Should I get one more new job? Should I bring more networking? The purpose of all this learning, unlearning and relearning is quite simple. It is to understand what your vulnerability is. And once you understand what your vulnerability is, that is when you open yourself up to being a global citizen, because you understand that you need to collaborate more. You need to work more with people, and more importantly, you need to respect everybody else, because you are one person who does not know a lot of things. So the second thing I would like to extol upon all of you is to make sure that you are able to act for learning. So continually keep learning. And a simple example of this I'd like to highlight to you is that while I was a joint director of electronics, I learned a lot about policy. We had, all these big companies. I hope many of you do know about it. Foxconn, Pegatron, 1,000 other companies who always came to us. And we were making excellent presentations. But a thing which kept nagging at us, all of us, is that while a lot of women were directors in the companies and everything was written on paper, we saw very few women actually coming in and, being part of the entire setup. When we found out what it was because, number one, in the government, we did not have a dedicated platform where women who wanted to be business women and everything could come in comfortably. When I say comfortably, very basic things, right? How you are received. Do you have access to a restroom? If you bring a child, can the child have any place where they can actually, be left? So these kinds of things actually showed up. And that is where the idea for WeHub came about, and that's what we've been doing for a while. So unless we learned and we are aware, we would not have been able to create WeHub. And through that, we've been able to work with more than 5,400 women so far, right? And the third thing, which is very important, actually, is the action of being irrational sometimes. So when you are a woman, and when you are a women leader, and this is something which is common to most of us, a lot of us must have heard a term called pig-headed. Have you heard of it? No? Yes? Okay. So there is a term called pig-headed, and a lot of times I've been called pig-headed. I thought it was literally a pig, right? So pig-headed, irrational, and so much more. I never took any offense to it because it really did not matter. Because I was really not in the role that I was for solving, catering to people's egos. So when I actually read up on what pig-headed means, it meant being stubborn, being in charge and making sure you're doing what you want, set out to do. And when I actually read the opposites of what pig-headed means, it means compliant, yielding, and also being very soft. So if you look at the opposites of pig-headed, I'm very happy that I've actually always been called as pig-headed. And the reason when I say this is not to say that, it's stubborn or whatever else. The society always gives us a lot of labels on how we should be. And if you're a woman, how women leaders should be, women entrepreneurs should be, women CEOs should be, like women teachers, women sports people, women bloggers, women journalists. There's a lot of women norms that come out. But one thing which actually happened when I actually owning up to this label of pig-headed, it actually made sure that, people realized that I'm not in a competition to be liked. I'm in a competition to get work done. And with that, that actually gave us a lot of confidence, and also a team of 30 people that are all working today at WeHub to make sure that, we can improve the lives of so many women across the state. These are a few points that I wanted to touch upon. So while you'll be hearing a lot about perspectives, you'll be hearing a lot about what world is, you'll be hearing a lot about, all the technology trends that are going to come about. It's going to be quite inefficient if all of you do not take the charge to act. And the only thing that can actually make a change in the world is when each of us acts. A lot of times we end up thinking, I'm just one person, I'm just one student, I have 3 followers on Instagram. What change would I be able to affect? Trust me, it's not going to be a big change, but it's going to be a change which is not going to be seen externally, but a change within yourself, where you'll become more outcome driven, you'll be much more effective for the world, and the most important thing is that you'll not be a person who's just come, walked the earth and left, but you've actually made an impact. So I wish you all the very best in understanding that, all these perspectives, all this knowledge is great, but without a catalyst of action, it's literally not going to be as effective. So wishing you all a great day today, and thank you for the opportunity.